Hello and welcome back to Idol Film Club, your Brainrot girlfriend's new favourite film podcast. I'm Gio.
And I'm Callum.
And on Idol Film Club we discuss new films, old films, good films, bad films and everything in between. This week we're talking about the upcoming Beatles biopics from Sam Mendes, and we're going to have a chat about musician biopics in general, as well as sharing our thoughts on Walk Hard, a Dewey Cox story.
Off the bat, I just want to thank everyone who tuned in to episode 1. Thank you so much. We got a lot of great feedback and support, and we really appreciate it. We do, honestly. And just a quick shout out to Jordan from my work who lent me a microphone because last week I was recording on a gamer headset. However, I did have the gain up way too high while I was recording episode 2. No fault of Jordan's, it's completely mine. So yeah, forgive if the audio is a bit wafty this week. I got a new microphone, which I'm speaking on now, and it's the same as George's, so we're ready to rock and roll for week 3. It's only going to get better from here. So thanks again, folks, and enjoy the show.
I don't like these movies.
Get real.
Dude, I saw that movie 20 goddamn times!
Just consume violence. I watch violent movies. Yeah, violent movies are the best movies.
Having you so much fun and
No, this movie's too complicated, ain't it?
So once again, no smoking in this theater.
With meditation, there's no limit to what we can imagine.
So last week we covered Madam Web. We hoped everyone liked it as much as we did. So now we have a new exciting Sony announcement to talk about.
What is that?
Are you ready?
No.
Get ready.
Okay.
Everyone's favourite Scousers, the Fab Four.
The
Is
Fab
that what
Four.
is that what the kids call them?
We're not going to get away with using any Beatles songs.
Absolutely not.
So I will be doing it myself.
Mm.
And that was the intro to Drive My Car.
Baby, I hate that song.
Georgia hates the Beatles.
yeah, I
Let's
hate
just
the-
get this out the way.
I hate the Beatles, so
Georgia absolutely hates the Beatles, which is obviously absurd.
yeah. I mean, what are you gonna do? I just wasn't a Beatles kid. You were.
Just gonna get this out the way now. I think if you don't like the Beatles, this is such a horrible take.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna get crucified for this. If you don't like the Beatles, you haven't listened to enough Beatles. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Have you ever listened to Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band in full?
Nah, because I'm not a loser.
Have you ever listened to Abbey Road in full?
Yeah.
No, she hasn't. She's a liar.
Well, anyway, you don't listen to my music, but you don't like that.
I'm forced to. Okay, Beatles movie from Sony.
So, obviously, coming off the back of Madam Web, a particularly stellar Sony endeavour, obviously. We are Team Sony on this podcast.
Yes.
Sony man, copyright.
Georgia came up with that.
I expect my royalty check in the post.
You will not be getting one.
I'll be... I'm fucking sued. So, Sony have announced that in collaboration with Sam Mendes, 1917...
Skyfall?
Skyfall and...
Empire of Light, set in Margate, filmed in Margate.
Oh, is that movie?
Yes, it was a
Wow.
Sam Mendes production.
Well, there you go. You know, Sony will not succeed without recognisable IP.
Hell no. The
They-
Emoji Movie. Do you remember the Emoji Movie?
Everyone loved it. Everyone was talking about it
Dad, I'll make the right face. Then I would finally fit in.
It was the biggest hit
since...
since the Angry Birds movie, which I haven't looked, but I guarantee is a Sony product.
I know the Emoji Movie is...
Look it up.
I don't know whether...
From the minds that bought you, the Angry Birds movie. comes-
I'm gonna guess that it's not Sony. That's my lock.
1 second. You keep talking, I'm going to look it up.
It's chat time! Josh Gad is awesome.
Distributed by Sony Pictures
Hey, well-
Releasing. It was Columbia Pictures, which is
a division of Sony.
Division of Sony
Okay.
Corp.
So half and half.
100% Sony.
These 4 films have been announced, which in and of itself, 4 Beatles movies. Who could ask for more?
Pete Best, maybe. Georgia is straight over
That
Georgia's head.
went right over my head. That's one for
He
you
was the-
Beetleheads.
That's
out
one for
there.
you. That's one for you, Beatlemaniacs.
Is that what they're called?
I think so. Is
Are
that
you
not
just-
what they are? Because Beatlemania.
Yeah, but Beatlemaniacs. That can't be
Well, what's
it.
the? It's better than Supernatural Family.
That's bare embarrassing.
Better
if
than
that is
hashtag
right.
SPN fam.
Will we go a single episode without talking about Supernatural?
I don't go a single hour without talking about Supernatural, specifically
Lies.
Crowley.
Yeah.
Go on.
Back on to our actual topic. These 4 movies have been announced. Sam Mendes behind all 4 of them, one for each of the members of the Beatles. See, this is pretty much guaranteed to be a big box office return.
Is it, though?
I think so, given people love 1917.
People like war movies.
True.
I am going to say 97% of the people that went to go see 1917 could not name you the director.
Mm.
I don't think so. Mendes is as big of a pull as people think he is.
He's
Empire
been
of Light.
knighted.
Yeah, but
The British people love Sam
anyone
Mendes.
anyone gets a knighthood these days.
You reckon?
Yes.
Are we so low on...
Also, Empire of Light I think was a flop.
Yes, true.
His successful movies are all IP.
This is IP, so...
Don't call John Lennon IP. He's a man. A dead man.
Did you like that? I wish you'd done that in a bit more of a Liverpudlian accent there. Were they trying to ban me?
Why are they trying to ban me? I've been a good boy.
That was freaking transcendental, Paul McCartney.
Obviously, 4 films were announced, and one for each member. So these are, according to the press release, fictional stories.
They're fictional.
Yes, so they're 4 fictional stories. It's been given the full blessing of the John and George estates.
We're in the money.
Alongside
Come on,
full
my
approval
honey.
of Paul and Ringo, obviously the 2 surviving members.
Ringo.
Isn't Paul? Some people believe that Paul is like a lizard and he
Fool
died.
is what they call him.
Fool.
Fool. Fake Paul.
Is that nah?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, Fool. He died in 66. Mid Beatles.
Mid Beatles.
Yeah, pre Abbey Road. They think he died and was replaced by a lookalike.
I know about the Beatles.
And this is proving how much I know about these Beatles movies that are coming out.
Oh, exactly.
You read that and I'll chip in with Beatles facts.
Okay. All 4 will be released concurrently, and they will all have interconnected stories from each of the each of the people's point of views.
Cool.
Over the years, we have seen plenty of Beatles biopics or Beatles adjacent media. You've got Nowhere Boy, which is obviously the John Lennon story, and then you've got Yesterday, which is a bit more of a inspired by the events of the Beatles and their life.
You have not seen Yesterday,
I have
right?
not. No.
I saw Yesterday and I was expecting it to be bad, but I was just blown away by how bad it was. It's a piece of garbage.
Did you not like the main character was brown, though? Was that not enough to hook you into the movie?
There was a big phase of that, wasn't there? Blinded by the Light as well. That was a brown boy.
Did you
about
see that?
White music. No, I didn't. But Yesterday...
I feel like people like that movie.
People like that movie a lot.
But also Bruce Springsteen fans have a bit of a
cult-like obsession, dedication to the boss.
Yeah, as they should.
Bruce.
We love.
I love Bruce. Yeah, Yesterday was utter tripe. Directed by Danny Boyle, which is a shame because he's done arguably like the best British film of all time in Trainspotting, and if people love 28 Days. I'm not that big a fan, but people love them.
So this sort of segues into one of the more difficult aspects when you're covering, we'll talk later about biopics in general, but when you cover a band as famous and as ubiquitous as the Beatles, there are a lot of issues that you have to face. So, for example, Yesterday, the filmmakers spent $10 million to license the music.
Have I ever told you about the Mad Men episode that licensed the Beatles?
I think you've mentioned it.
They spent $100,000 to use the rights for Tomorrow Never Knows off Revolver for a scene where Don Draper puts on Revolver, and as a fuck you, or that it's representative, but he cuts it off like halfway through. It's pretty good, and they spent $100,000. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was $100,000.
One of the things you'll often see is Beatles music is never in movies and TV, ever.
It's only recently, in the history of things, been on streaming.
The estates, obviously, for them, their families, whatever, they're all very tightly sort of controlled, and they won't let people use their music for stuff that they sort of don't.
Green light.
Yeah, exactly. So this is probably why you don't see particularly many Beatles. I mean, there has been a few sort of peppered over the years, but they're not one of the more popular things to cover, because why make a Beatles movie when you can't use the music?
I'd like to ask that question of the people who made England Is Mine, the Morrissey biopic that has no Smith songs in it, because Morrissey didn't want them to.
That's sort of more the reason to make it, I think.
I was quite happy to be unemployed because I didn't want to work.
Basically, the only reason that these movies are able to be made is because in 2016, Sony/ATV Music Publishing, which is basically a joint venture between Sony Corporation, which literally sounds like something from a superhero movie, and the estate of Michael Jackson.
Yes, because Michael Jackson bought all the rights to the Beatles music in the 1980s.
They acquired the majority of the Beatles catalogue, including the rights to the most iconic Beatles songs. Because they own the publishing rights, it basically means that they're responsible for licensing any music. So anyone that wants to use the Beatles in any TV shows or films, they obviously have to go through this before they can do it. So yeah, Sony/Michael Jackson, the estate of Michael Jackson, own the rights to the Beatles catalogue. Not all of it, but the vast majority of it. And again, people can't use it because it's so expensive to license the Beatles songs. But as I said, another reason why this is pretty crazy is because they are, like, you know so much about the Beatles, and I tell you like the Beatles, but you're not like...
I'm not obsessed with the Beatles.
No.
I'd say I was when I was about 17.
So much of their history has been documented, and they're so... maybe not to sort of younger kids these days, but like anyone our generation and above.
And also their story just isn't very interesting.
Well, it will be tough to make 4 separate stories converge and also be unique.
I was thinking about that today because I didn't realise they were fictional stories. And the rise of the Beatles is, for all intents and purposes, pretty... It's not like going to light the world on fire. The more interesting stuff was the fall of the Beatles.
I think, unfortunately,
and like Rubber Soul era Beatles, that was the interesting stuff.
What, where they're just having catfights between them?
That's later era Beatles, or like when they're hanging out with like Ravi Shankar and just dropping LSD.
I'm at least glad that they're trying to do something a bit innovative with it. Yeah. In terms of making 4 separate stories that all converge to tell a different but same story, I actually think that's quite cool.
Yeah.
My question, and we've sort of touched on it, who is the audience for this movie, right? Are they even gonna try and market it towards younger kids?
Not a chance.
Do you reckon they'll hire cool and hip actors, or...
Not a chance.
No. I think it will be for Beatles fans and Beatles fans only.
I don't know about that, but I don't want to jump the shark on the podcast, but I do not think we'll get known actors. I think they'll be unknown.
Do you reckon?
You can't get known actors to play the Beatles.
You've never seen Nowhere Boy, right, have you?
No, I saw it as a kid.
Did you?
Yeah.
What did you think of Aaron Taylor-Johnson?
Fine.
I don't see that.
But it's young John, isn't it?
Yeah, but again, I don't really know. I only know sort of photos. I've seen a few interviews and stuff, but...
I mean, he doesn't look like John very much.
No.
But he has that kind of swagger about him.
Yeah, I don't mind that necessarily. I think with a biopic, it's more like Control, right? The movie about Ian Curtis, which we're both very big fans of.
If you haven't seen it, watch Control.
Yeah.
This is the television programme which brought you the first appearances from the Beatles to The Clash, as you'll soon know about these lot. They're called Joy Division.
I don't even know if you have to be a Joy Division fan to...
I'm sure it helps.
It definitely helps.
Or if you're a John Cooper Clarke fan, it might help.
Evidently Chicken Town.
That was used in the penultimate episode of The Sopranos.
Very cool. Yeah, I think it will be interesting to see who they cast, because honestly, I think that will have a massive impact on how successful the movie is.
Yeah, it's so difficult, isn't it? Because I'm thinking creatively.
Yeah.
Whereas they're not.
This is pure speculation, and I just sort of found it interesting coming off the back of talking about Sony last week. We sort of said, where does the future for Sony, like post Madam Web, we've got Kraven the Hunter coming out. This isn't going to become a Sony podcast or anything. It just happens to be that I saw this in the news, and I know that you like the Beatles, and I very much don't like the Beatles, so I thought it would be...
Yeah, would you watch it?
No. I don't think so.
What if they cast someone you liked? I'm trying to think. What if they cast that kid from Teen Wolf as Paul?
What, Dylan O'Brien?
Dylan O'Brien.
By the way, anyone listening to this, I am maybe the biggest Dylan O'Brien fan in the world. I love that boy so much, and I'm very excited for his new movie. He's got a slit in his eyebrow and a glint in his eye.
You know, dick up his arse, apparently.
We can only hope. So I'm going to read you a couple of quotes.
Go.
Pippa Harris, who's the producer working on these movies. Nothing will be off limits, and there is no sense of the band wanting him to tell a particularly authentic, quote unquote, version of their rise to success. So I don't think I've mentioned, but these movies are sort of documenting the rise of the Beatles.
Yeah, I did hear that.
So it's not going to be any of the interesting things that you want from a Beatles movie.
No. Right, it depends what they mean by rise of the Beatles.
I think the most important thing to sort of take away from that is that, according to this quote, and I'm not really sure if I believe it, there's no sense of any of them wanting to tell a particularly authentic version. This basically says to me that they have license to do whatever they want. And Sam Mendes, definitely, he's not a provocateur. I think he will be faithful to the...
Is he writing them as well?
I think so, yeah.
I don't know enough about Sam Mendes.
No, I don't really. But
I don't like any of his movies.
But in the sense of, he definitely will not make a movie that is going to upset people.
I take that back. American Beauty is fantastic.
Oh, yes. American Beauty. I completely forgot about that. So, obviously, I have not a problem with biopics, but one of the reasons that I find them very frustrating, you look at movies like Bohemian Rhapsody, right?
Trash.
I've not seen that either.
Neither have I. I just know it's trash. It's directed by a paedophile. And I don't watch movies directed by paedophiles unless it's Roman Polanski, Woody Allen, or Steven Spielberg.
Spielberg?
Allegedly.
E.T. gives me the warmest memories only because that was the film where I discovered that I really wanted to have kids someday.
So, with movies like Bohemian Rhapsody, it wasn't a particularly authentic version of Freddie Mercury. It was probably an authentic Queen depiction, but basically no mention of him being gay.
No mention of his dwarf parties where he had dwarves walking around with plates of cocaine on their head.
No mention of AIDS or really anything like that. Another movie that I'm pretty sure got ragged on online for being terrible with editing.
Yeah. It was the editing that was really bad.
Yeah.
And it won the Oscar for Best Editing. These jokes just write themselves.
We'll get into musician biopics and the Oscar bait, because it's a surefire way for, again, whoever is in these movies will 100% be nominated for an Oscar. The Academy. And I'm
yeah, probably. Sam Mendes is an Academy sweetheart.
We're making all these bold statements, right? And we're going to look back and we're going to have fucking egg
These
on our
movies
face.
are just not even going to come out.
Well, apparently they are not due until 2027. So hopefully the second episode of our podcast will be long in the past by that point.
I really hope Paul stays alive. I saw Paul at Glastonbury. He was bloody brilliant.
He's a little old man.
He was fantastic.
You reckon Ringo will still be around?
Ringo is gonna Ringo's gonna last forever, mate. Peace and love. When you're fueled on that much peace and love, you can't die.
He's so unassuming.
Yeah.
He gets memed though.
Yeah.
I think George is my favourite.
George is the best.
I don't know anything about him, but I just like Paul McCartney annoys me, and
Paul's
John
boring.
Lennon.
He writes granny
I
music.
hate. So anyway, this is a direct quote from Tom Rothman, the Sony chairman. So he said, "Theatrical movie events today must be culturally seismic. Sam's daring, large-scale idea is that and then some. Pairing his premiere," and this was spelt with an E, and I'm not sure that's right, "premiere filmmaking team with the music and stories of 4 young men who changed the world, who will rock audiences all over the globe. We are deeply grateful to all parties and look forward ourselves to breaking some rules with Sam's uniquely artistic vision."
Was he masturbating when he said that? Because that is the most masturbatory statement I've ever heard.
It gets better.
Oh, Christ.
"The project marks the first time Apple Corps Limited and the Beatles have granted full life story and music rights for a scripted film. The dating cadence of these films ... will be innovative and groundbreaking. I know I speak for our CEO, Tony, who was instrumental in making this happen, and every Sony Pictures Motion Picture Group colleague around the world when I say, yeah.
Kill yourself.
I'm warning you with peace and love, but I have too much to do."
I've been sitting on this for so long. Do you remember the Beatles?
Christ. These movies are just going to be self-indulgent, patting everyone on the back.
Aren't the Beatles so good, guys?
Just that statement where he's like, thanking everyone at Sony Pictures, Sony Motion Picture Corp. Aren't movies fun, guys? Don't we love movie making?
I know
The
I
magic
speak for
just-
our CEO, who was instrumental in making this happen, and every Sony Pictures Motion Picture Group colleague. I'm sure the grunts in Sony Pictures are so excited for this movie. They can't wait. The people they keep locked in a basement. Again, to me this is fascinating because I think it will either do very well or it will flop.
What order do you reckon they're going to release them in? Because it's one for each member, right?
I reckon it will be Paul and John will go on like first and
Yeah,
last.
it's got to be right. I think it'll be.
Ringo will
John's
maybe...
got to be last.
Yeah.
John is the guy.
Yeah. I think it will be Paul, George, Ringo, and John.
That's exactly what I was going to
Yeah.
say, even before I asked that question.
People-
Because if they did Paul and John first, fuck
Yeah,
off.
yeah, they
No
have
one's going to give a fuck. They're
And
going to have to
also-
bookend them.
Because a lot of people quite like George Harrison, right? I think because he's dead, that sort of...
And he
well,
died of cancer.
It would be well sad if no one saw the Ringo movie.
Anyway, peace and love, peace and love.
So now that we've talked a little bit about the upcoming Beatles biopic, I sort of wanted to talk a little bit about biopics in general. Obviously, this is part of a much larger trend we're seeing at the moment. To me, it seems to be very indicative of where we're at with sort of film trends. Studios seem to be too lazy or afraid to explore new ideas or to fund anything that's not existing IP. And everything seems to be a remake, sequel, prequel, requel, or a recognisable IP, which is what we're seeing at the moment with these biopics. In essence, I'm not opposed to a biopic by any means.
No, is there any you like? I would say Straight Outta Compton's really good.
Straight Outta Compton, I very, very much liked. In fact, I loved Straight Outta Compton.
It's fun.
It's fun, and
I think it captured the essence of the group very well.
I think it functioned more as a film.
100%, yeah. There wasn't that horrible scene that I
Do
guess.
you remember?
Yeah.
No, I love Straight Outta Compton. I'm trying to think. It's not a genre that I usually watch.
I'm trying to think if there's. Oh, I like Love and Mercy, the Brian Wilson.
Yeah,
one,
that was very good, very sweet.
But mostly due to Paul Dano.
Yeah, I was
think
gonna
Paul Dano
say,
is fantastic in that movie.
he is so
John
good.
Cusack is not as good.
Boom! 2, 3, 4.
But I do think that sort of the glut of these biopics that we're seeing at the moment just basically reeks of studios being unwilling to sort of take chances and would rather rely on something that they know already has an existing fan base.
It's hard to imagine now, in the current landscape of films, a studio taking a punt on something that's just a new concept. A Star Wars, a Jurassic Park, or just any sort of big blockbuster movie that isn't a comic book movie, a remake, a prequel, a sequel, or a biopic, or sort of recognisable IP, something like... Again, look at the big... You'd say, like, Oppenheimer's a biopic.
To me, Tarantino is the last of a very specific...
Yes, but they're not IP.
But I will go out to see a Tarantino movie, no matter what it is.
And the thing with Tarantino and people like that, I guess you could say the same with Nolan, but again, he's directed lots of IP. I guess Tenet was his own idea, and Inception, and yeah. I think Nolan, people go out to see a new Nolan movie, but there isn't that. Everyone come around and see the new Steven Spielberg movie, and then in the 90s, the new Roland Emmerich movie.
Yeah.
Or the new Michael Bay movie. There just isn't that.
We don't really have tentpole movies anymore because every movie has a ridiculous thing. Like all the superhero movies, 200 million budget, easy, every single time, and it's unnecessary.
And I also think that's why everyone got so hyped for Barbie Oppenheimer, because
It
we
was an
haven't
event.
we haven't had an event movie like that in so long. I think the last one was probably, in my head, I guess Endgame, and then
Force Awakens?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, Force Awakens, but I guess you have to discount those comic book movies. Not discount them, but I guess original IP Oppenheimer must be up there with the highest grossing.
Yeah, I think for me it's difficult because I'm very much...
Contradicted myself because I said Oppenheimer if it's a biopic.
I think for me, I will generally not see something unless it is A, a horror movie, or B, a director that I like. Unless I think something is absolutely looks amazing.
I don't tend to vary out of my. But I think you're a lot more open-minded in that sense. Whereas
I enjoy Oscar bait.
yeah, I don't.
See, people might be thinking, why aren't you reviewing, The Holdovers or Poor Things or Anatomy of a Fall? Georgia doesn't really like those movies.
I will watch Poor Things and I'll get round to it because it has been on my list for a while.
Maybe we'll cover it in the next coming weeks.
But I do think that I am very fussy. I would rather, I've said this to you before, I'd rather watch 1,000 bad horror movies than I would watch a sci-fi movie. It's not my genre and I don't like it. And I think musician biopic ride that line for me of, oh, this is amazing. I'm getting to see an artist that I really like and their life explored and all that thing. And, Straight Outta Compton, the acting is so good. The characters are so likeable. There's not a weak link in that cast.
It's really good, that movie.
Cruising down the street in my 6'4". Yeah.
We've talked a little bit about it. Biopics are easy money, basically, because if you're taking a risk on an independent filmmaker, or if a studio has 200 million to put into a movie, they're not going to put it into a movie that may flop.
No, why would they? They don't take the chances.
Yeah.
I think even George Lucas said that Star Wars would not get made today. He had a bit of a hit on his hands with American Graffiti, but he was unproven.
Studio executives generally are not the most sophisticated people in the world.
I think that's why I like Blumhouse so much, because they don't put shit tons of money into their movies. They'll give directors a considerable amount of money and say, sort of do what you want for the most part.
The Blumhouse model, I think, is admirable. It does churn out a lot of shite, but then you'll get a Get Out, or a Whiplash, I guess.
In recent memory, we obviously saw Priscilla. We both really liked that, which was, again, that to me, that was a different kind of biopic because the focus was different, and obviously Priscilla wasn't a music artist. There was music in it, but it wasn't. We tried to watch Rocket Man, right, and we bailed about 10 minutes in because it's not for me. I don't.
No, honestly, I like a character study more than a sort of masturbatory, self-indulgent.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to go all the way and do an honest and open portrayal, which I think that's why I like Control so much, because Ian Curtis was obviously, he's adored by people who like him, but he was a bit of a piece of shit. Like, he cheated on his wife. Yeah. And the movie shows you that.
And Control's more of a character study. At no point does he turn to his wife that he cheats on and goes, oh, well, I guess love has torn us apart. It's none of that. And then you cut to him in the studio being like, I got an idea.
Yeah, and that is the worst thing about biopics. And I think studios at the moment, we're seeing so many of them because they know that people will say, I know who Bob Marley is. And if I release it on Valentine's Day, I'm sure people will love it. The Bob Marley movie did pretty well. Critically, it got very mixed reviews. However, it made a lot of money. So I did some research into this. As I said, it's not really a genre that I particularly am interested in. And for me, there's so many coming out that I now am even less interested than I was previously. In sort of recent history, I mean the last few years or so.
How many have you got written down?
We have Bob Marley, One Love, Whitney Houston's I Want to Dance with Somebody.
Can we guess the rest?
Yeah.
Elvis?
Yeah. We've already talked about one.
Priscilla?
No.
Oh. Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody?
Yes. We've already talked about another one. I'm a Rocket Man.
Rocket Man.
That was the last one that I had on there. So you got most of them. And would you like to hear what's in the works?
Is it the Amy Winehouse biopic?
That's the first one. Unfortunately, being directed by Sam Taylor Johnson.
Oh, awesome.
Another link to this is Nowhere Boy, which I'm pretty sure is when she met her child bride.
Yes.
I will not be expanding on my thoughts on that woman. We have a Michael Jackson biopic coming.
Speaking of child brides.
Yeah, that will be fascinating.
If the Jackson estate has anything to do with it, it will be completely fabricated.
Grateful Dead.
Yeah, who cares?
Billy Joel, Bee Gees, Boy George, John and Yoko, Keith Moon, and Bob Dylan.
Oh, yeah, because Timmy's playing Bob, isn't he? Timothy Chalamet's been announced to play Bob Dylan.
Has that been confirmed or?
Yes.
So, This is what we have in the pipeline. Now, going into this topic, I'm going to be really, really real with you. I did not want to watch any of these movies. So we decided that we were going to watch a very different kind of biopic.
Yes.
Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story.
It's fabulous.
We loved it.
It is great. And don't worry, this review isn't... It's kind of hard. I just want to say this up front. It's hard reviewing a comedy movie because you don't want to just be like...
It was funny or it wasn't funny.
It was funny, and then I read out jokes from the movie.
Yeah.
Go, ha, 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 ha. As a concept, I do love a fake biopic.
Yeah, so do I.
They're fantastic. The Lonely Island one, All-Star, Never Stops, Never Stopping. There are some other ones that I can't. So Citizen Kane is basically a fake biopic.
Well, I think around that time you had like Blades of Glory, and you had these sort of like high concept comedies, which I think were like, there's something a bit more to this.
They're not as bad as like a modern Happy Madison movie.
No.
They're not artsy. They're very lowest common denominator, but they're good. Judd Apatow movies and the Adam McKay glut of movies that I quite like them all, to be honest.
Yeah, so Walk Hard was directed by Jake Kasdan, who did the Jumanji movies. He's also done like a few other sort of recent movies. I'm sure you're familiar with the surname Kasdan.
Lawrence Kasdan.
He is a Nepo baby.
He's Lawrence Kasdan's son.
He is.
Lawrence Kasdan wrote Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. Force Awakens, he just copied and pasted.
Yes.
Good for him, though.
Yeah, get that bank. So we obviously have Jake Kasdan as a Nepo baby. That's how it's written by Judd Apatow, Anchorman, Talladega Nights. Obviously, his Nepo baby is Maud Apatow.
Yes, and Iris Apatow. Don't forget Iris.
I've never heard that name before in my life.
I know her from Maud Apatow's Instagram. Maud's great, though. Don't get me wrong.
I like
and also, do you know what she's named after?
Harold and Maude.
Yes, it's his favourite movie.
Very good.
She's my favourite movie, too.
What is your name?
Harold Chasen.
Oh, how do you do? I'm Dame Marjorie Chardin, but you may call me Maud.
I like a Nepo baby, as long as they're talented.
Yeah, we could do a whole episode on Nepo babies.
Untalented Nepo babies, especially directors and writers.
Also, sorry to interrupt Georgia here. Speaking of Nepo babies, I am doing my fan cast later, so don't worry. But I've got about 100 names on a list that I've been crossing, drawing arrows to. At one point, George was going to be played by Max Landis. Just let that sink in.
He is the definition of a Nepo baby because he's
completely talentless.
He's a talentless hack, and he's also possibly the worst person ever. Yeah. And if you're listening to this, Max Landis, fuck you. You suck.
Go suck it in.
So this movie was basically a massive flop by industry standards, but it was well received by critics. People liked it. It made almost much in DVD sales as it did in theatres.
Yeah, you couldn't go to any charity shop and find all those DVDs.
It's mental to think that DVD sales were as big as they were back in that day. But even the Whitney Houston movie made a lot of money in DVD sales because it's people of that age and buying physical media.
Go to your nearest charity shop. I guarantee you find Anchorman. You'll find The Other Guys, Super Bad. You'll find this movie. You'll find Knocked Up. You'll find 40-Year-Old Virgin. All those movies made bank on physical sales because they're rewatchable.
It's a sad thing that we don't have that as much anymore. And I know you like physical media,
but it's very niche, isn't it?
I also think with the dystopian state of streaming services and everything like that, I'm actually very much starting to lean towards that, where I'm like, physical media is the way to go because these people will not stop taking your money. So I think one of the reasons why I like this movie so much is just the fact that it was formulated to be an Oscar bait parody. Yeah. They wanted to take the situation seriously, but also pastiche. And I think that comes across very well. John C. Reilly sings all the songs in this movie, and he played guitar on most of these tracks. And I know when I was sort of doing a bit of research that a lot of critics actually praised how good the music actually is.
Oh, yeah, no, I loved watching it because of the music. Yeah. I thought it was great.
A lazy way to do that movie is to make cheap jokes and write shit songs, but everything was well thought out, and all of the parodies, you have to know a little bit about music, but I'm by no means a music expert, but I got a lot out of this movie, like seeing all the different eras of like characters and drugs and all that stuff. It was great, and I sort of said to you when we finished, it was interesting to watch a comedy that was also a bit, an epic is a stretch, but you see sort of a journey, and that
Well, it's very high concept as well.
really high concept, and that was refreshing.
All the set design was fantastic.
John C. Reilly was amazing.
You're right, the production was fantastic. The sound editing was fantastic. I think the ongoing memory it will have for me is the Pet Sounds parody where he's running around the studio.
That's meant to be the Smile album, right? The album that never was.
Well, I think it sort of combines them together.
Yeah.
Because it is, Brian Wilson tried to post Pet Sounds, tried to continue on pushing boundaries of music, and the band just did not like it at all.
I think it also really showed the history of music, especially like rock music and sort of counterculture music. And we both sort of said how much we liked the fact that it pretty obviously, but never sort of goes too far with it, shows how white people co-opted black music and made it
monetized
not made it successful, but monetized it. And basically, when a white face was put on it, it was suddenly a lot more accessible and people liked it.
And she says, "Son, get your lazy two-timer Negro ass up out of here." And you say to her, "You got to love the Negro man. You got to love your Negro man."
So I thought that was really good. It was quite nice for a change to laugh at men and well-respected and powerful men sort of throughout history, because I think a lot of comedies around that time, and specifically a lot of Judd Apatow movies, I'm thinking Knocked Up.
Yes.
It is very much like, we're the cool bros because we smoke weed, and women are so uptight, bro. And it's like...
Yeah, 4-year-old virgins are a lot like that as well.
I've never resonated with that. Like, I've seen Knocked Up a lot because it used to be on ITV2.
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't like.
I was going to say earlier, if you haven't seen Walk Hard, then just wait a week, it'll be on ITV2.
Yeah, I would very much recommend that, and I've recommended it to a lot of people since watching it, because I think if you like music and you know a little bit about the history of music, you'll get a lot out of it.
It's aged well.
Very much so.
I think it's sort of passed our generation by, that movie.
I knew the poster, but I didn't know anything about the movie.
But it's not got the cultural impact that an Anchorman had, or even like a 4-year-old virgin, or those movies we've said, Knocked Up, or Get Him to the Greek and things like that. You don't hear this movie talked about in conversation very much.
I think it sort of flew under the radar, but again, it wasn't controversial. I think it was just a well-made movie, so I think people just sort of passed them by.
But yeah, this isn't a full review, because again, like I said, comedy movies are hard to review,
Yeah.
but we both recommend it. I assume you recommend it.
Yeah, definitely.
So go watch that.
They all have Bill Compton accents, which was great.
You know what they say about gentlemen? They don't brag about sloppy seconds.
Shout out True Blood.
By the way, this is me bullying anyone who's listening to this into watching True Blood. It's the best show you'll ever watch.
True Blood's my favourite show. No, I mean The Sopranos is... I'll tell people it's The Sopranos is my favourite show, but it's actually True Blood.
There was a lot of little Easter eggs for me specifically. At one point, they're dressed in outfits that look like Scooby-Doo when he's going undercover.
Play that clip.
Hey! Everyone part like the Red Sea. It's me, Shizzy McCreepy, and my brother, S.D. McCrawley. We are in the house and ready to partay.
And also in Get Hard, there is a little scene with
Very
4
good.
wonderful men. And that would be John, Paul, George, and Ringo.
The Beatles, the 4 Beatles. Us.
From Liverpool.
Yes, we are from Liverpool. We used to play those dark clubs in Hamburg. Remember that, Paul?
Of course I do. I booked them. I'm the leader of the Beatles.
I'm talking right now, and here it is. These are my fan cards of the Beatles.
I've been patiently waiting. This was the one assignment that I gave you for this week.
So, to give a little context, I was at work today, and I thought, fuck, I've got to come up with these fan casts. And I was like, I'll have a look and see what the internet says. And it turns out the internet are fucking morons. Because the amount of times I saw a fan cast of Paul McCartney being played by Tom Holland.
No.
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Tom Holland was the big name. I saw a lot of Paul Dano, a 50-year-old man who, once had a Beatles haircut, but does not look like the Beatles. I saw a lot of people wanting...
Paul Dano is just a lazy choice.
He is a really lazy.
He's a very good actor, and I'm sure he'd be fine, but
We're talking young Beatles here.
their rise to fame.
Who else did I see? I saw Benedict Cumberbatch, Paul. Yeah, obviously. These people are just terrible. I did see Dari Harrison, who's George Harrison's son, I don't know if he can act, but fuck me, does he look like young George?
I think they could do a straight out Compton thing. However, I think O'Shea Jackson Jr. is actually a very good actor.
Yeah,
so
I
think
I
it
can't
works.
imagine George Harrison's kid as a good actor. So yeah, after trawling through the internet and looking for fan casts, this is the thing. I basically came to the conclusion that there are no actors that can play the Beatles.
When I gave you this assignment, I was thinking to myself, maybe I'll try and do a fan cast. And then I thought, oh my God, I wouldn't even know where to start.
So if I was Sam Mendes or the Sony Corporation of conglomerate recording artists, I would hire unknowns. That is probably where I'd leave it. However, I was like, fuck it, balls to the wall. I'm going to just search actors from Liverpool. That's what I'll do. Because I don't want to see
a fake Scouse accent.
I don't want to see a fake Scouse accent. We know how that worked. Just look at Saltburn. So I looked up some actors from Liverpool and I found 4 fabulous people who could play the Fab Four.
Going into this, just as an FYI, I've not heard these fan casts. I have no idea what's coming next, and I'm ready.
I want to start with John.
Okay.
You need a bit of swagger for John. You need a bit of intensity. And although this man is not from Liverpool, both of his parents are. They moved to Canada at a young age. He had a Canadian accent, but don't worry. He can do accents. He's done Scottish, English, American, Canadian. And also, I don't think he's had a serious breakout role yet.
Oh.
He's mostly known for comedy. This is Mr. R. John Lennon, Mike Myers.
Stop.
I don't know what you're thinking. He's a bit old. Just technology.
Digitally de-aging.
We did it with Mark Hamill. We can do it with Mike Myers. He's my John Lennon. That's locked in.
It's locked in.
What do you think?
I'm not a fan of the digital de-aging. However, I think at this point, this entire concept is... If I'm Sony execs and Sam Mendes right now, I'm sweating. Because this is almost a feat too big for mankind.
So, moving on to Ringo now. And it's going to be a screwball comedy. That's locked in.
It's locked in.
And we have a fine man who was born in Liverpool. Fantastic comedian. Fantastic. You've seen him hosting game shows. You've seen him in Panto. He was once married to Amanda Holden. It's Les Dennis.
Les Dennis.
Les Dennis is our Ringo. If you haven't worked it out by now, there's not a lot of actors from Liverpool.
I was thinking this. You're really limiting your options by going the authentic route.
Yeah, and I think it's
though.
more. I think it's more important to have Scousers in it than it is actors.
Yeah.
I think the Scouse is important, which is why, for my George, this man's not an actor. I think he can break out into acting. We've seen it. He's a sports personality, right? He's quite well known. He's very Scouse. And his career's taken a bit of a turn from the worst. He's a bit washed. Anyway, you've probably worked out by now. It's time for the acting chops of Paddy the Baddy Pimblett. What do you think? That is for George.
Right, well, the little I know about George Harrison, Paddy has very manic energy.
Yes.
And do you think that's appropriate for George
I'd like
Harrison?
to change my answer. Paddy Pimblett, Paddy the Baddy, is going to be playing Paul McCartney. And he's going to be fantastic. We've seen it with Dave Bautista, John Cena, The Rock. These fighters, Mike Tyson, these fighters, they can act. And Paddy, it's not, you're not going to last forever in MMA. You're not going to last forever, Paddy. It's a rough sport.
Can I just say, you're opening your franchise with Paddy
Yes.
as Paul McCartney.
He knows Liverpool.
Yeah.
His politics on immigration, very reminiscent of the 1960s. He's got everything you need. He's got a Beatles haircut. We know he can lose weight. He can put on weight, you can lose it. He's got the energy we need. And that's what's important. He's got the spirit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's just round it up before we get to the last one.
I'm excited to hear your John, because he's your bias, right?
John is my bias. Now, we're doing a female John Lennon. Gender-swapped John Lennon.
Awesome.
We're pushing boundaries here, guys. It's not the 1960s anymore. This ain't...
Does she get hit by John Lennon?
Cut that. This actress was born in Liverpool. She moved to the United States when she was 3 months old. So she's still a Scouser, technically. She was on one of the biggest shows of the 1990s, early 2000s. She didn't make the reboot. She's quite difficult to get on with. However, I'm a soft touch with the ladies. So I think I can direct her if I'm Sam Mendes. And this is none other, you know her, you love her, Miss Kim Cattrall.
Oh, stop. Perfect.
Perfect. She is our job.
She's from Liverpool.
She was born in Liverpool.
It's permitted. I called Hasbro. They said it violated the spirit of the game, but not the actual rules.
The fuck?
I know.
My friends know this. I'm a massive Sex and the City fan. I like it in the way that I turn my blinkers on and I remember how progressive it was in the 90s.
And I like to stand in the doorway and pretend to do things and also watch Sex and the City.
Oh, yeah, Sam is
Oh, Samantha is the best. Kim Cattrall's a force to be reckoned
How do
with
you
on
remember
that
that
show.
Family Guy cutaway gag?
Meg, that's not nice. Old people have a lot to offer society. Just look at Kim Cattrall.
Kim Cattrall, honestly, you've won me back with that. I'm imagining her with John Lennon.
It's going to be great. She's obviously, again, we're going to have some prosthetics, but I do think a gender-swapped John Lennon movie circumvents the need to bring up his atrocities against women.
Do you?
Yes.
Right-eyed.
What about his kids? If he's a woman, it's all right.
It's empowering if a woman leaves her kids.
Yeah, right. Got you.
Mike Myers, Paddy Pimblett, Les Dennis and Kim Cattrall, lock them in, sign them up, contract.
I really like the gender swap element because I think it really plays into how Hollywood feels about women, where it's like, if we just put women in roles that were meant for men, that's super empowering, guys.
And now they're making Ghostbusters with only women. What's going on?
Thank you for the reception for the first episode. We got a lot of positive feedback. And one of the main bits of feedback / comments I got, a lot of people told me, Gio sounds so intellectual. Gio, she just, she comes across so well. She's so smart. Bullshit. So this is a new segment I like to call, Is Georgia Smart Really? So we've got some pop culture questions. You play along at home. Let me know if you are smarter than Georgia. And let's play, Is Georgia That Smart Really? Okay, question 1. Are you ready? In which Disney film are there 4 buzzards with Scouse accents that are modelled after the Beatles?
I feel like I know the answer to this.
Do you?
Is it animated?
No, they actually had buzzards, real buzzards that they modelled to look like the Beatles. Yes, it's fucking animated. Go on. It was The Jungle Book.
You chose that because I haven't seen that movie.
I chose it because there was no other
kid.
Disney films that... if there were ones
You
The
did
Lion
it just
King,
to,
I'd
you
pick
did
that.
it just to personally victimise me.
Oh, George is also a really bad loser. Question 2. Which song does Ferris Bueller sing on the parade float during his day off?
You've just picked movies that you know that I haven't seen.
You haven't seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
Well, yes, I've seen it, but you...
Sorry, let the record show she's seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
You have seen it hundreds of times, and you love the movie Ferris Bueller. Yesterday.
Or in the parade float. Fucking hell. No, it was Twist and Shout.
Twist and Shout.
So there's 0 for 2, if you're keeping score. Question 3. Name the 4 actors who played the Beatles in Walk Hard.
Justin Long.
1.
Jason Schwartzman.
2.
Jack Black.
3. You're missing John.
Paul Rudd.
Correct.
I remember something from 2 days ago.
Well done. Okay, moving on to question 4. Which children's TV show did Ringo Starr narrate from 1983 to 1990? Very famous, this. I'd be surprised if you didn't get this.
I feel like it's lying in the recesses of my mind somewhere.
There.
Blue.
Bluey.
Blue Peter.
No, I think you said Bluey. I was like, 1983. It was Thomas the Tank Engine. 5.
Oh, God, that smile on your face makes me scared.
It's just because what you said about ew, the movies I've seen once. In Cameron Crowe's Almost Famous.
Right. These are all movies that you like, and you know for a fact that I don't like.
Kate Hudson's character has the pseudonym of which Beatles song?
Lucy.
Oh, it's a good guess.
Yeah. It doesn't make any sense, but...
No, it's Penny Lane. Question 6. Which Beatle voices himself for one line in the Simpsons episode Homer's Barbershop Quartet?
Paul.
Would you like another guess? Think about the question.
Yeah, no. I'm thinking...
You're thinking Lisa
the vegetarian, because they go to Vegetarian Paradise and it's Lisa and Linda McCartney.
And it's on the roof of the Quickie Mart. 1 out of 3.
Ringo.
Ringo was in the episode where Marge paints Ringo's picture when she's a kid, when she becomes an artist.
George!
It's George Harrison.
Oh, I knew it wouldn't be John Lennon.
That's very...
I love how all 3 of them have been in The Simpsons.
Okay, last question. In the US office, much to Dwight's dismay, which worker shows distaste for the Beatles?
Which worker?
Yeah, which person in the office shows distaste for the Beatles?
I actually don't remember this. Is it Andy?
No, I can try and think of what episode it is. It's an opening.
Ryan. Hello, Ryan.
And for a bonus point, can you tell me which songs Dwight says, you don't like these?
No, I absolutely
Do you remember
cannot.
the context of this scene now?
No.
Really?
No.
It's when Smokey Robinson dies. Or he thinks Smokey Robinson has died.
$200 is nothing to the world's biggest Smokey Robinson fan.
He goes, oh, sorry, I don't like the Beatles.
Okay, I'm sorry that I'm not a fan of Jason Mraz or the Beatles. You don't like the Beatles? That's not the point. Eleanor Rigby, paperback writer? Okay.
Good little segue, because Ed Helms, Jenna Fisher,
Craig Robinson.
Craig Robinson were all in Walk Hard.
Stacked.
Very stacked. Well, thank you so much for your quiz. I very much enjoyed the... And you are going to take so much satisfaction in knowing that I've humiliated myself.
You know what? It was more depressing than anything.
Right.
But is Gio that smart, really? She is really smart, but she doesn't know a lot about the Beatles or Disney movies.
Next week, I'm going to make a quiz, and I'm going to fill it with movies that you have seen once and absolutely hated, and then quiz you on them to make you look embarrassing.
The Ultraviolet quiz. The Catherine Briard romance quiz.
Yes, get ready, because you're going to have egg on your face. Well, thank you so much once again for listening, and I hope you enjoyed Callum's new segment. I very much did. So next week on the podcast, we will be covering Francis Ford Coppola's Bram Stoker's Dracula.
Woo!
And this is sort of in anticipation for us covering Poor Things, and Callum did a little bit of research to find out that that was a major influence into the movie.
I looked on Wikipedia on the influences.
So we thought we'd give you a little bit of background before we go into our thoughts on that.
So that'll be the week after. So week 3, Dracula. Week 4, Poor Things. Week 5, I haven't decided yet.
Work in progress.
Work in progress. Stick with the podcast. It's only going to get better, gang.
Thank you so much for listening once again, and speak to you soon.
Speak to you soon, everyone. Goodbye. Have a good week. Bye.
I don't like these movies.
Get real.
I saw that movie 20 goddamn times!
Just consume product. I watch violent movies.
Yeah, violent movies are the best movies. Having so much fun and
Oh, this movie's too complicated, ain't it?
So once again, no smoking in this theater.